Okay, Sharon, does that have it up?
Yep, we see it. Guys, if you are listening in, please be patient with us for a moment. We've started the webinar and we are just finalizing our organization here. We actually have 7 minutes before we're due to go live, so we are live a little early. So just be patient with us. Feel free to mute us for a few minutes while we get ourselves organized.
Sorry about that. I accidentally hit the all the above button.
No problem. So if anybody that's on as an organizer or panelist, I recommend muting whenever you are not speaking. Getting a tiny little bit of feedback, which might be the noise you were talking about, Bob.
Okay. It's very minor, so I think it'll be okay. I do see Buster's slides up.
Yep, I see that too.
Ah, darn it.
Right, I'm going to go ahead and, so Buster, your slideshow is up. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and pass control back to you, Bob. You'll be starting us off.
All right. Still got about 6 minutes.
Did you want to add anything else on that, Buster, before I switch control?
Oh, no, it's good. I'm going to run to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem. Right, back over to you, Bob.
Okay. So I should be back up.
Yep.
And I need to see, let me try this. Yep. Okay, I switched over to the agenda and then back to me. Got it. I'm working fine. Everything's set on my end.
Good.
Thank you.
So Michael and Michelle will be joining us. They were actually in the other meeting that I kicked out of the room. So they're just finishing up elsewhere and they will be joining us shortly.
Okay.
They're more just to support, to help out if they're needed. So they'll jump in as and when needed or prompted to do so.
Okay. All right. Sharon, will you be using slides this morning on your update?
I am, just briefly, yeah.
Okay, I'll depend on you to switch around, get us the right person up, if that's okay. Okay.
No problem. How's life in Huntsville?
I'm sorry?
How is life in Huntsville?
Oh, never a dull moment. I'm sure the same in Atlanta.
Yeah, I visited Huntsville a couple of weeks ago. We brought the kids and went to the Space and Rocket Center.
Oh, great. Yeah.
It was really cool. I'd never been and I was very impressed.
It's amazing. It's just amazing what they have there.
There was so much more than I was expecting.
As a matter of fact, right after this webinar, I've got another meeting over there that I'll be attending at the Davison Center, where the Saturn V rocket is hung up in the ceiling. I'll be over there for that.
Very cool. It was impressive to see just the sheer size. I think actually having the one horizontal that they do inside the building is more impressive than seeing it upright, because you really get more of an idea of the size.
I agree. Are you guys still recovering from AW World?
I think we're good. It's all full steam ahead prepping for 2020 now.
Right.
That's coming around too quickly.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. By my clock, we're at 3 minutes out. Sure, and I'll do the intro and then flip to the agenda, and then I'll introduce you, and then we're off and running. Okay.
That sounds good. And I'll just be ready to display my presentation.
As NASA would say, T-2 and counting. Sharon, we're on good.
Ready when you are, Bob.
Okay.
You're already recording, so feel free to start when you are. Good to go.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the October AEE chapter webinar. We're glad you decided to join us today, and we appreciate the fact that a few of you joined us a little bit early as we were getting set to begin this webinar. Thank you for your patience as we got things set up this morning, and we look forward to a great and interesting webinar today. We are going to have a discussion about AEE member benefits. Buster Barksdale will have a bit of a presentation, and then during that presentation and afterwards, we'll be able to ask questions. If you're not sure how to ask questions, look over to the right side of your screen, and there's a button that says questions. Click on that, send us your questions. There are several of us who will be watching for those questions to come in, and we'll answer them and make sure that you get your questions answered. Today is an interactive webinar, so feel free to ask questions at any point in time. At this point in time, I'd like to turn things over to Sharon, who is going to give us an AEE update. Sharon?
Hi, just give me one moment. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure you guys can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. All right. So, yep, just a few quick updates. I wanted to let everybody know that our 2020 U.S. public training schedule is now up and available. We are open for registration, and that can be found on our training website, as you can see here on the screen. So please go out there and take a look. We do have a lot of different courses available already.
Sharon, excuse me for interrupting. I think I've got your home screen showing 2 children.
All right. Yeah, they're cute, but that's not what you want to see. Right. Are you still seeing that?
Yes.
All right, let me just exit from PowerPoint and go back in. I apologize, guys. This is not working the way it was supposed to. Let's try again. I'm going to change presenter back to you for a second, Bob.
Sure.
So I can, in the background, get this set up.
Okay, this is our agenda for today while Sharon is working.
Okay, let's try again now. show my screen.
Still
Let's
beautiful
try
children.
that again. Do you see them now? Do you
Yeah,
still see
still.
them now?
Yep.
Oh, let me
Nice.
show. It is not showing my screen for some bizarre reason. All right. Give me just a moment right here. I apologize. You know what, guys? I'm going to come back to this and give you the update towards the end because I'm having trouble getting it to show what I want it to show. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Buster, and we will come back to see my screen. So Buster is our current Board of Directors Secretary and is President-elect for 2020 and also Chair of the AEE Membership Committee. So over to you, Buster.
All right, do you see my slides on there?
We do.
Negative.
All right, Sharon sees them. Bobby, you don't see them?
Yeah, I got them. I got them, Buster. Thank you.
All right. All right, folks, our board of directors has met quite a few times over the past year and a half, and there was a lot of things that came up over that time about where we need to go or what we need to be doing and things like that and what's important. And so we had so many things, we decided to appoint some committees to take care of that. One of those is the membership committee, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And each of those committees, we had board members running those committees. We had staff assigned as well as outside subject matter experts to work that. These are not approved, so to speak. They're pretty far along in some cases, so I'm going to give you some information. But we've had probably 9 or 10 meetings related to these topics, and they've grown a lot. So if you see something, you have some good ideas, send me a note. We're going to use this as sort of an information gathering session too, and we build on that. And we've already sort of found that that if we throw out a straw man, people can look at it and say, you know, that's 80% there, or you know, why don't you tweak this a little bit? So that's where we are, and we're going to get you guys engaged from this standpoint of what we're looking at from that. The board established about a year ago 3 strategic objectives. One is we found we want to do a little bit better job and really focus on connecting our members globally, as well as meeting their needs, you know, locally. Those kinds of things we found are important, and we found that we want to give that sense of a sort of a local tie as well as an international tie to what we're doing. So that was very key to that. The second one is we started talking about value of AE membership, and it was not known very well, and we really didn't understand what that value was. And so we think, one, we've got to market that better. 2, we've got to add some other things to that. So several things came up from that discussion. And finally, the issue of there's a urgent global environmental and energy needs. We see that we're in it every day, and so how do we address that? How do we prepare professionals better for that? That was the third. The committee, the membership committee, quite frankly, 2 of the strategic objectives, the top 2, fall under the membership committee, and I'm trying to wrap that together. We met multiple times, as I said earlier. One of the issues we felt that was really needed is a cradle to grave kind of an approach that sort of links everybody together in the energy management community, and then we have a thread that we can pull and just continue that. And I'll show you what that looks like when we get to the next slide. The second is we wanted to provide a synergy between our categories of membership, whether it was an individual member, whether it was corporate members, or whether it was chapters. They all sort of stood alone or stood individually in a lot of cases, and so we want to start drawing better ties there. Because we had so many different things that were in this in our task, we decided we're going to develop a skeleton of the approach, and then we'll start dealing with major sections as they sort of pop up, and then fill in details as they present. We find as we go along and start filling in these skeleton, we find better clarity to the details, and then we'll reassess and readjust as we go. But we see as we find that, we'll be able to get better, and then as we as things get presented, they'll get clearer and clearer to us as we evolve over time. The cradle to grave approach, this is sort of the diagram we came up with related to it, is we talk about a lot of things, we do a lot of things at the high school level, at the college level, all the way through. We don't have sort of a thread that can tie, and we'd like to be able to track and make sure a high school student that's interested in energy, interested in sustainability, that they can feel that they can go from high school to college to a young professional to a master professional and then retire and feel that they're being educated and fed along the ways with our family. And, you know, we've always talked about AEE being a family, but the issue is we've got to be all-inclusive from that perspective. So we looked at this that way and said, okay, how do we do that and draw these guys together? So this is sort of our start. The second part of it is we're working these titles right now. A collegiate professional came up in one of the discussions the other day, because as we start looking at high school students and lumping them in, we don't want to call both students. It just doesn't sound right. Young professionals, we want to add more value to the young professional and extend that time period on the young professional, and then whatever we call the other professional, whether it's master professional, seasoned professional, whatever, those are what we're looking for right now, time. And then even as a retired professional, what they get. So this is our one of our first meetings. We said we've got to be able to be able to draw a thread, pull a string, so to speak, that somebody can feel like they're engaged, and that at each level there is some value added that they see for being a member. The second, as we talked about before, was how do we determine value and add value to an individual, chapter, and corporate. Individual members being, you know, one of those categories we just showed you earlier, whether it's high school all the way up to retired member. The first one we had, and it came up to be related to, at AE World, we had a corporate members meeting. We found that none of them could articulate what the value of AEE was to them. So we found that we needed to work on that very quickly. There was some value, but it just wasn't apparent to that. And second, they wanted to be more involved. And so one of the things that we did, in fact, we're going to vote on it at the next board meeting. I'm going to just sort of give you an outline of what we're looking at for corporate members and about getting them involved more in AEE, giving them more value added, as well as getting them more value with the chapter. So one of the things that they came up with was they'd like, you know, some of them were offered a first-year membership half price, you know, so we're looking at incorporating that. Expand corporate membership. Going to look at adding right now they have 3 members that they have, allowing them to add a young member and a collegiate member as part of that, because one of the core problems we're seeing is we're not getting young people involved. We're not preparing them for the future, and then after college they'll just sort of fall away from us. So we're trying to get them involved at the corporate level too, have them tagged in, and be able to show some kind of a role from that rolling into a young member, which is also going to be in our corporate membership. So that way we can keep these folks, keep them engaged, keep them involved until they get a little bit more mature and are able to fill in positions and other things with us. And so we're going to prepare them, sort of a mentoring program with our corporate members from that perspective. Conference discounts, that goes without saying, you know, expos, discounts, and meeting rooms related to that, seminars, dealing with employee discounts on that. Some of those were already in place, some of those were not clear, and so we're doing some things to clear that up. Establish a criteria where C members are offered the opportunity to speak or lead in sessions at the events. You know, those are all just, you know, just sort of make sense kinds of things. We want to highlight the corporate members at the expo and at speakers. We'll give them sort of an icon on their booth, or icon on their name in the program, just to show, you know, their involvement there. We want to, they love the event so much that we did AE World. In fact, one corporate member commented, he said he felt valued just by us having the meeting and asking for their inputs. So we said this is important. We're going to hold this at all of our events so that the corporate folks have a time to sit down and bring, you know, some of their senior people in and say, okay, what's the value, what else do we need to do, what we would like to do, then what can we contribute? Because out of this, we found out that some of them wanted to contribute some things also, and we'll hit those in a couple seconds. The second aspect of it is some of them would like to hold forums, I call it lunch and learns or receptions. They'd like AEE to be a part, co-sponsor those events. That's easy for us. That's something important to them. We certainly see that. We're talking about an intern program, including the corporate members there, and then tying that back to our student membership program. The last one, which is important, where they said, hey, how do we get involved in working with chapters and helping chapters out? And it was one of the things that was one of the criteria that I wanted from them, especially out of this meeting. And so it worked out good that they were volunteering that. So we're asking them in areas where we're taking the United States, and we're looking at areas where we have large cities that do not have, or large metropolitan areas where we do not have an AEE chapter, and we're asking them to set that up with their local office. Is go ahead and establish that, sponsor that, and get that started. That resonated so well. One of the groups after the conference went back, and within 2 weeks they'd already called us about starting a chapter in one of the cities that they're associated with. So we know that's good. The second one they'd asked about was how to help on chapters, and so we're also starting and I call it a process where we have corporate members support chapters that are on life support, meaning they're barely getting by and whatever. So we're working to establish that list. We're getting regional vice presidents. We're starting that list, and then getting a corporate member that has an office in that area tied to helping that chapter stay sustainable. And then we're going to even ask the corporate members to start a collegiate chapter. So those are some of the things. The last things, the next slide, the last things that we talked about was trying to work out how we could they'd like access to some of our certification folks. We've got to, get permission from the folks to do that. So we're working that member directory, corporate member directory, those kinds of things they'd like to have. So that's on that. Job board, them having rates. We're about to have a job board created, should be up in the spring. And we're going to get them involved in that, being able to advertise on that. We're going to make that a lot better than the job board we had a few years ago. So I know we haven't had one in a while, but we're going to get that back up here in a few months. And I think that with corporate guys engaged and wanting to do that, that should be good. Integrating expo sponsorships with corporate sponsorships, that's just dealing with the gold sponsorships versus whether they're a corporate member or not. We're just going to integrate those two things together. That was the questions that came up. Then we're going to just market that on our website, get the word out to the folks, and we're even looking at revising the structure right now. It's a one-tiered structure, being able to give a tiered structure so that small businesses can participate at a better rate than what we're doing with these large businesses. So we're going to have a three-tiered structure. So that's what we're looking at for corporate members. This is important. We're going to get this voted on here in a few weeks, and then we're rolling this out at the NAESCO conference in the middle of November, and going to work that with some of the members there and try to get them involved into the next expo, because we think that's important for the guys. The second thing that we've got to so far is individual member core values. Many of these values are there, but how we articulate that and then how we put that together, we just want to do a little bit better job of. Certainly talking about belonging to family professionals. An individual member here, what I'm talking about primarily is aimed at young professionals as well as our master professionals, but certainly we'll take some of these core things out to our collegiate ones, to our retired folks, those kinds of things, and even to our high school. One of the things we found on the individual member is certainly the issue of tying them to that, getting them the support opportunities they need for training. And we look at the training opportunities being, one, the local training, chapter courses, whether it's local flavor, the PDUs there, things like that. We're also going to add something new for this, and we're calling it Tumen Talks. They're sort of like TED Talks, so we're going to set them up so they're tiered, and they provide a level of experience for all of the types of career areas that we have in AEE. So even if you look at the exam, let's say it's got, I think it's 14 areas, and then the other certifications, we will build up some educational series that are 30, 35 minutes that the folks can use locally to provide a world-class speaker to be as part of their session, because we know, when we started looking at a lot of the smaller chapters, these guys may not have as many speakers as they'd like, or they may not have the quality speakers they'd like, but here we can provide them an expert on batteries, an expert on microgrids, an expert on monitoring commissioning, and we can have levels of those so that they can build it up and get PDUs. So we're going to build this up, and we're also going to provide a ladder of these Tumen talks so that people can follow that ladder up to prepare themselves for the seminars, so that they can feel better prepared when they go into the seminars, and then from the seminars to taking the certification test. So that's what we're looking at there. We think that's good. The other things that certainly that are provided to individual members, we have seminars that bring them an international quality instruction. We have the webinars that have been really, really well received. We're going to do a little bit better job of that as far as publicizing that, make that available on the website and stuff. Right now, it's just goes out by email. We want to roll that in, and also roll that into a structured environment like we're doing with the Tumen Talks on how we prepare people, get them ready for things, and keep them on the leading edge. Regional training events, certainly some of the chapters run those. The international training events, the seminars, the certifications, those are core values that we're going to really push and show. The other things that we're going to do is access to training tools, other training tools we're going to do. Professional certification, I've already talked about. The networking events themselves locally as well as regionally and internationally. The networking events that we provide are a big value to our members. One of the things that came up, asked for, was a knowledge library and putting that together. We do have the journal, but we're going to start putting together a place where we have opportunity for papers and a review process for that, so people can be able to go in, see things, and be able to get to that. And so it'll be one of the values. The job site we talked about, it'll roll in to be available. The intern program we've talked about, networking, and then the involvement in organizational structure. What we're talking about as far as the organizational structure itself there is folks getting involved in the leadership structure at the local level. That allows them to grow professionally as well as to contribute to the chapter. The last thing that I'll talk about is how do we do a better job in supporting the chapters and doing things to help the chapters to be sustainable and to support them in every kind of way that we can. So we looked at helping that. We want to say is what are the indirect and direct support toolkit. That bullet should be indented, but some of the major issues is a toolkit, more involvement from our POC, from our regional vice president, from our folks at the headquarters to help you. And I coined the term, right now this chapter's sort of on a live and let die kind of a basis. We want to make that a little bit better for them from the standpoint is we know that chapters start themselves a lot, but we're going to start starting some chapters with our corporate members, use them as a big output there, use the corporate members to tie back and help, as well as, anything we can help with. Otherwise, we want to do that. So the expanded support network certainly has your webinars that Bobby's been putting on. We certainly want to expand on that and have that as a core part of this. A chat room for presidents and officers was discussed. Call sessions to just deal with that, from the standpoint of one-on-one issues and other things that are coming up. A working group to deal with that and be able to brainstorm ideas to do better chapters and stuff. And then a hotline to the world headquarters. We're talking about how to rebrand the AE headquarters. Is it World, is AE International? We're working on that right now and rebranding some of the other aspects of what we call things, because there's a little confusion over that right now. I've talked about the lifeline process when I've talked about the corporate members. We're working on a rating system for the health of the chapter, and process for the regional VPs to monitor that health and status to help us as far as know what that is, and then to do that, and then tie them to some corporate members to help them when they need that kind of help to be sustainable. A toolkit. This is one of the biggest things. Really large chapters sort of pretty much have all their stuff put together. They know what they're doing when they're doing it. But a small chapter, a startup chapter, doesn't have those. We want to be able to give them options on doing that, have canned processes, have materials that are already sort of pre-thought that they can just sort of copy paste for job fairs, for establishing collegiate chapters, for doing expos, for their training session guides, everything we can do. We're trying to build that up, that toolkit up for them. I've already talked a little bit. I meant to hit this a little bit earlier. The two-man talks, the chapter courses, things like that, the ties to the local industry. So those are there. The other chapter support, the electronics job board. We really want to start helping and really pushing more and more our collegiate chapters. Quite frankly, we'd like every chapter to have a collegiate chapter, and we're really saying is we haven't figured out the exact size, but every so many members, you know, let's say it's 25 or 50 active members, you know, that you're selecting, that you're setting another collegiate chapter up. I know that there's several that have 2 or 3 chapters, 2 or 3 student chapters right now, but we don't have very many student chapters overall, and we want to do that. We want to make that easier. Even if you have a few students that want to get involved, that don't have you know, the full 10, we want to enable you to use that sort of as a student chapter or a collegiate chapter. I'm sorry, I'm going to call it a collegiate chapter just to differentiate it from a high school chapter. Collegiate chapter so that we can get some value added and grow those college students into our young professionals. High school chapters, right now for the collegiate and the high school, one of the things that came up on our call the other day is having a kit that's even more simple, idiot-proof, so to speak, to say, okay, here's lessons, here's two-man talks that you can use on these subjects, and they're more designed towards the high school level, more designed towards the collegiate level, and help them to prepare. And so that's where we're working those right now to develop those so we can make those a little simpler, easier, so these guys have able to get valuable chapter meetings when they have those, and so that it gets easier, because we know that the guys that or the support people from our chapters that do that, that's a very, very hard job. It's very, very hard keeping these folks straight and going, so we're really trying to make that simpler. So with that said, I breezed through where we're at. I will open it up for questions. I don't know if any questions came in on the chat room.
Nothing right now. So if you're sitting out there watching, please go ahead and type questions in if you have any.
Buster Bob here. Lots of great information there. What we will do is if we get people that send in questions later to Sharon and/or to myself, we'll be sure to pass those on along to you, should there be any in addition to what may yet still come up in the remaining time we have left in this session. Having said that, Sharon, I'd like to go ahead if you're ready to pick up your update right now.
Try once more to see if it will display. I'm having issues with technology right now, but let's go ahead and see if we can get this one to display. It will display my main screen. Show my screen, and it's showing this, but then if I go here, let's see. No, see, it's only showing. No, it's not showing. I can see my slides, but you guys are not seeing them for some bizarre reason. So I'm just going to recap for you just quickly. I'm going to stop showing my screen because you really don't need to stare at my kids, cute as they may be. But I just wanted to bring your attention to a couple of things. As I said, the training is now available. It is up online on our website. If you go take a look, you can search for any training for 2020, the US public training sessions. The live training sessions are all scheduled. Still working on all the other online, and on demand is still on its way. All of that is being worked on and will be available soon. We also have 4 events coming up in 2020. AEE East for 2020 will be in Cincinnati in April, and registration for that is now open. We have AEE West in June in Seattle, and we have AEE World in Colorado in September, and we have our first European event, which will be in Dublin, Ireland in October. As I said, AEE is open for registration. We do currently have an early bird pricing for AEE members at $95. That price will be available until January 1st. So please go ahead and take a look at the website and get yourself registered for that great price. And those were really all the updates that I had. I'm just going to go ahead and check this questions. We've got a couple of questions. Well, one, looking forward to the chapter support. Is there a way to network with other chapter leaders to hear what is working and not for attracting members, local seminar events, etc.? Buster, anybody respond?
No, there's not currently. That's one of the items that was on our list that we thought would be important to be able to do that. So right now it's just, it needs to be there. Now we've got to work out the logistics and all to do that. There's several things, as you can notice on the list that we laid out, that are going to be pretty big logistics kind of items. We're working to figure out how to smoothly do those. Some of them we're going to start very quickly, like the corporate things. Those will get approved very quickly. The chapter ones we will do as quick as we can, as quick as we can find somebody to set those up and to do that. But we do think that's important. We agree.
Okay, any other questions coming in? Doesn't look like it right now.
Okay, Sharon, flip it back to me if you would.
Oh, hang on, Clint has posted. He says, if your chapter has some material you have used to put together a meeting or sponsor an event at a student event, please let Buster or Clint know. We would like to duplicate some of these for our other chapters. So if you guys have things that are working for you, please reach out to Buster Boxdale, Clint Christensen, share what you've been doing that's been successful so that we can kind of prep something for other chapters. And let me go ahead and pass back to you, Bob.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Buster, for a great presentation there. As we move on down the agenda, our next chapter webinar is scheduled for Thursday, the 19th of December. And we'll certainly continue on in 2020 with our AEE chapter webinars. You saw the tie-in to what Buster's presentation was there, and this is just a small part of the AEE member benefits that we intend to continue to work with in 2020. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for joining us today. And as I look at the clock on the wall, it looks like our time has expired. Again, if you have any questions or if you have any further comments that you'd like to share with Buster Barksdale, you can send them to him, to me, or to Sharon, and we'll make sure that we get them to the right place. Thanks again for your time. We appreciate your joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you again in December. That wraps up our webinar for today. Goodbye.
Thank you.